call the meeting to order, the regular board meeting of the Ames Board of Trustees, February 10th, 2021. Get my agenda page here in order. Okay, first on the agenda, approval of the agenda. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
I so move.
I would second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Carrie, I'll let you take a roll call vote.
Chair Oxiger, would you like to amend the agenda to add an executive session?
Yes, we do need to do that. For your information, we do need to add an executive session for today. Thank you for that, Carrie.
I would
So-
amend my motion for approval of the agenda to include an executive session.
Okay,
I would second that.
Ray would second that. Okay, so we have an approval with an amendment. Carrie, would you like to take a roll call vote at this time?
Yes. Trustee Hout. Trustee O'Hara.
Here.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee Wendell.
Aye.
Chair Oxiger.
Aye. Okay, that motion carries. The approval with the amendment is approved. The consent agenda. We have a
Mr.
motion to approve the consent agenda.
Chairman, before we go any further, my screen is showing that the shared screen is disabled. And I can see you, but that's all.
Okay, we'll have to have Matt look into that for you. Because you should be seeing the agenda now.
Yes, I can see the agenda.
Ray, you
Okay.
might have to sign on because that happened to me earlier in the work session. Re-sign on, go back out and come back in. That's what I did. Because I had a frozen screen, actually, it was your screen, but
And now I can see Mark. You know,
Okay.
that's all, so. Not that it's a big deal, but it's sort of,
sort of.
I will remote into his computer and take care of it.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so moving on, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I would so move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have a second.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, which is the minutes of the December 9th, 2020 District Board meeting and the minutes of the December 14th, 2020 Special District Board meeting. Carrie, would you take a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Trustee Hout.
Aye,
Trustee O'Hara.
Aye.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee Wendell.
Aye.
Chair Oxiger.
Aye. Okay, the motion carries. Public comment. This time, we're not doing public comment over virtual. We are asking that if anybody has any comments, that they send those comments in to the board via the link provided on your screen if you're with us, or the posting of the agenda. So if you have any comments for the board, just send it in via that email. That is monitored and those will be brought to the next meeting. Carrie, do we have any from previous meeting?
No, Chair Oxiger, we do not.
Okay. Next on the agenda, a presentation from guests and representative of the board. First off is Excellence at Ames. Foundation Executive Director Kelly Jackson. I'll turn it over to Kelly if she's with us.
I am with all of you. Good afternoon, Chair Oxinger and Board of Trustees and Dr. Bornstein.
Glad to have you.
Carl, you are on mute, just so that you know. Today, I present Carl Alm, 1985 Police Academy alum. He is a fellow Rotarian and current club president of the Centennial Greeley Rotary Club. Throughout his 30-year career at the Greeley PD, Carl served as a patrol officer, detective, narcotics task force officer, and lieutenant. After retiring from the PD, Carl began his third career supporting his wife's residential rental business, JRA Investments. According to Carl, Josie is a good boss, but she can be strict at times, which shows you his sense of humor. Family and service are obviously important to the Alms. Josie served as a PD police officer for 12 years. Tanner Alm, the son of the family, is a firefighter in Fort Lupton, and his younger brother Trevor is a Weld County deputy. I introduce today Carl Alm.
Well, trustees, glad to talk to you today. And I'm just kind of getting used to this Zoom, but I've kind of gotten used to it. I grew up in a Weld County that a lot of people wouldn't recognize, but I heard Mr. Peterson and Mr. Oxinger talking about calving cows. That's where I started out. I was a good kid, straight arrow, graduated Eaton High School in 1979, did 2 years at NJC. And came back home, and my dad, my brother, and I had a irrigated farm here just east of Eaton, and we also ran 150 cows on a grazing association up by the border. Recognize it; it's right across from Perry Ranch, Duck Creek, and
PCD.
yes, and we had a plan, and we got caught in some of the creative destruction of the economy. But when the bank wouldn't renew our operating loan in the winter of 1985, I landed a job with the Greeley Police Department, which had the good sense and faith to invest in me as a young man and put me through the Ames Police Academy. Provided me with excellent occupation, which I think I developed into a profession. After getting through Ames, I went ahead and got a bachelor's degree from Regis, and then after a command school at the University of Louisville, I got a master's degree and was able to do 30 years at the PD, and I never did move off of the farm. So I'm kind of stubborn about that. And in between years, I took a few Spanish classes at Ames, some criminal justice classes, and Kelly, you mentioned that I've got a son who is a firefighter full-time, 24 years old, owns his own house off of my insurance, completely launched because he got through his fire classes at Ames. On another note, I've got a daughter who's a junior at UNC now, but during this whole COVID thing, she was up at the University of Wyoming. And during that interval, she came home and picked up some of those classes she needs to get towards her bachelor's at Ames. In addition to that, we've had family members go there and pick up some essential skills. And, you know, when I talk to kids about what they should do and what they should get into, I always tell them, what do you need? What do you need to have in your life? And it's a roof over your head, it's security, it's whatever kind of practical things that you need for your life. I said, that's a good thing to start. I mean, everybody wants to chase their dreams and whatnot, but skills and marketable skills are what I think is important and is what is proving important. So I just want to commend Ames for providing those firm stepping stones towards occupational employment. And also, like with the police department, we had a 2-year degree requirement for officers to get promoted to sergeant. So that also provides an intermediate step where people that have family, kids, other commitments can do, because God love the world. We need some elite universities that are educating people that are going to be able to be experts on French literature and rocket science and microbiology and all those kind of things. But a great country needs a lot of good, productive citizens. And I just want to say that's been my experience at Ames. You're producing those, and I'd encourage you to do the same. So Ray, I just say, I still got cows, and I moved my calving date back to May 1st because I am not wading through snowdrifts anymore to warm up calves.
Okay, gotcha, understand.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Carl. We certainly appreciate you being here. It's been my pleasure to know you over the years. I don't know whether you remember me over the years, but I interfaced with you a few times, and certainly a lot of your people when I was working in the back of an ambulance. So,
Oh, I was just afraid to call you Lyle because everybody's
Yeah.
calling you Chairman Oxinger. You
You
darn
just
right, I
call-
remember you.
you just call me Lyle.
Okay, and since I figure I got 15 seconds left, I just want to say that the organization has an excellent ambassador in Kelly Jackson. She is positive and she is proactive and she is pro Ames. And our Rotary Club has got a lot to do with the community, and she really puts a positive face on Ames for you.
All right. Well, thank
Very
you.
good, very good.
Thank you for that.
Carl,
Anybody else got any questions, any comments?
real quick, as a fellow Centennial Rotary member, I appreciate your service, not only to our organization, but our community, and your recommendations that you've given Ames by sheer participation, both all your family members. It's exciting to hear those stories. And you have won one of my lapel pins from Ames. So
Okay.
next time, just pull it off my cuff and claim it. And these are great stories. I love hearing, and I think all the board members, as well as the whole college here, we have a group with us. You know, these are the stories we want to have a sounding board for. And
Okay.
anytime you want to come to the meeting and sound that board, please feel welcome.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark.
Anybody else, any comments? Dr. B?
Thank you. Well, Mark pretty much summed it up. Carl, usually at this point, I will do the same. I want to thank you for taking your time and just let you know that we do this every month with an alum or a current student so that we all, not just the board, but the whole college actually gets to hear your story, because this is why we're here. And so your story is in the forefront of our minds as we move through the business of the day. And it's very helpful and heartwarming. And it's wonderful to hear a family story for sure.
Yeah.
On how Ames has impacted you. So thank you for taking the time and sharing. It's very important for us to keep you front of mind.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Dr. B. Kelly, a final word? Okay, we'll move on then. Thank you, Carl. Representatives to the board, Student Government Association. Alicia, are you with us?
I sure am. Can you hear me?
Well, I can hear you fine.
Awesome. Well, thank you and good afternoon, everyone. Just quick updates from student leaders. So starting with the Student Government Association, we had a great start to this semester with our I Heart Technology initiative. SGA's Vice President of Academic Affairs, Ashley Edson, and Vice President of Facilities and Operations, Terry Adams, launched this project for students who were in need of equipment for their remote and online classes. Students who needed the equipment would get this at the Learning Commons. And they picked up webcams, headsets, and portable chargers, along with a free t-shirt, which is always great, free stuff. The program was very successful, that we ordered additional items and are considering ways to incorporate programs like this at the start of each semester. In addition to individual projects, all of the sales student leaders will be focusing on recruitment for the next school year's leaders. Most of our members will be graduating in the spring, so it's a big year for recruitment for us. The Campus Activities Programming Board will be kicking off a series called Words with Writers in partnership with Professor Brian Seaman. The first event will be tomorrow at 6 p.m. This is an interactive conversation with a published author, and all students participating will receive a complimentary copy of our book. We don't have much more going on currently, But we will be continuing on our efforts to connect with students in order to learn more about what their needs are. So that is all for me today. Thank you.
Sorry about that, Alicia. I was muted. Thank you very much. Appreciate hearing from you as always. Any questions of Alicia? Okay, we'll move on then to Ames Faculty Association. Mr. Moody.
Okay. Hello, can everybody hear me and see me?
Absolutely.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Oshinger, Dr. Bornstein, members of the board. We have a couple of faculty accomplishments, but I just want to say our faculty, we continue to work hard during these difficult times with the pandemic. And of course, on February 15th, a lot of the online classes that were forced to go remote will be coming back face to face. So a lot of faculty are happy about that. For publications, Professor of Humanities, Rebecca Saylor, was added as a peer reviewer to the editorial review board for the Online Learning Journal. It's one of the most cited academic journals dedicated to research and scholarship for online learning. She is currently the only member representing a community college, and her knowledge in online classes is spread throughout the college. In fact, yesterday during Conversation Day, held a good session on how to be better with online discussions. And of course, she has another accomplishment here as well for professional development. And then for community involvement, Dr. Booker, who is the professor of history, he just became the faculty lead advisor for the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society, which is a very prestigious one here on the campus and for students who earn very high grades. Myself, I actually became part of the experience team with the Greeley Museum Board. So what this involves is that we're looking at how can we make it interactive, not just now, but also virtually too, so people from around the world can go in and interact with our artifacts and also to interact with the museum. So I've been on that team there, and Holly Berg is in charge of that. She works for the museum. And then one of our adjunct instructors of astronomy, Carla Jones, she was interviewed by KUNC, our public radio here in town, regarding the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction that occurred in December. And it aired between the 17th and the 21st. And in your packets, everyone, you do have access to that interview there. There is a link for it. And then for professional development, Professor of Anthropology and Chair of FTLC, Sarisa Reynolds, ran a virtual session of the Tappan Learning Conference for the spring session. It had 17 faculty members facilitate breakout sessions and serve on panels. And of course, as mentioned before, Rebecca Saylor, she was the keynote speaker and also, again, had a good session yesterday for Conversation Day. But she just earned her PhD in psychology from Grand Canyon University. Huge accomplishment for her and her service here to Ames Community College. And her dissertation was entitled Students Report Experiences in Online Community College Environments, a Qualitative Study. So again, really good. And again, her knowledge in online learning will help out everybody in the college here. And like I said, our Conversation Day thing was amazing as well, helping us do better in all of our classes. I know it'll certainly help me with my online classes. So that's pretty much it for the report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Any questions of Mark?
Mr. Chairman, didn't we just give Rebecca sabbatical leave?
I believe we did.
Yeah, so did she finish it up that quickly? Carl, Carl? Professor Moody?
I don't know. Mark, can you address that, or anybody?
I don't know if she was put on spag leave now or was it last year. I can't say, unfortunately.
I think it was in December, maybe. Was that the last?
Well, somebody will look that up and somebody will get back to us on that.
I mean, that's okay. I'm just curious, just because I thought, wow, she did that in a hurry.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh.
I do remember sabbatical leave at some point. Okay, moving on. Thank you, Mark, again.
No problem.
Ames Staff Association, Jen Seedorf.
Good afternoon, Chair Oxiger, members of the board, and
Good
Dr.
afternoon.
B. It's nice to be with you. I hope you're staying warm and even warmer over the weekend. So the staff have jumped right back into the semester after winter break, and we're, just rocking and rolling, keeping things going. As you know, yesterday was conversation day, and we had several staff members who presented sessions. So it's always great to see staff being involved and growing in their professional development in that way. As usual, the Ripples in Recognition is in your packet, and I hope you have had a chance to read through it and got to see the interdepartmental kudos that was given out by the senior advising team to their pathway advisors in January. I think it was around 11 in all. So that's pretty awesome that they were doing that. I would also like to share a nomination that was received for Allied Health Advisor Rosalba Martinez Sharp. She received a wonderful recognition from Christy Kearsley, a new student. So Christy writes, I'm a new student here at Ames, so naturally I was super nervous to get started, but Rosalba eased my nerves and exceeded my expectations when we met via Zoom. She was extremely helpful and explained everything very thoroughly. She really took her time to explain everything to me and answer all my questions. Sometimes you can tell just that someone loves what they do by how they do it, and Rosalba is one of those people. She made me feel confident in myself and helped take away the doubt I had in the back of my mind. She really is amazing. These nominations for our advisors are so well deserved. I think we can all agree that they have been working hard, both in person and remote, to ensure that the students are still successful in their journey as we've navigated through this year and as we will continue to do so in the semester. We also had a few supervisors who wanted to recognize some staff accomplishments. Mike Millsaps wanted to recognize David Mott, who is a planner drafter specialist in facilities and operations. Mike writes, I wanted to share an employee accomplishment in the facilities department by David Mott, planner drafter specialist 2. David recently sat for the CEFP, Certified Educational Facilities Professional Credential Exam. Woo! There are very few professionals in higher education facilities management that can say they have earned the CEFP. What is the CEFP and why is it so important to acknowledge someone here at Ames for having this acronym after their name? It is an advanced level of certification that represents a mastery of professional expertise and is a mark of superior proficiency in the core competencies for education facilities professionals. This designation demonstrates superior proficiency, professional strength, and unfailing dedication in the field of educational facilities. The CEFP represents the foundational knowledge, talent, and skills of facilities professionals by highlighting accountability and emphasizing the importance of the profession as a whole and also at the institutional level. Congratulations, David. Shayna Howell in Workforce Development wanted to recognize Russell Iverson, who is the Academic Business Specialist in the Center for Workforce Development. Shayna says, Russell recently received his certificate as a certified program planner from the Learning Resource Network. So I know you'll join me in congratulating both David and Russell in their accomplishments and their commitment to their continued education. That's all that I have for today. So I will take any questions.
Thank you, Jen. Any questions of Jen? Okay, well, it's always great to hear from you, Jen, and it's always great to hear all the positive stuff you put out. We love hearing all of that.
Thank you.
So thank you. Okay, moving on. Action items. Action item A is fiscal year 2021 to 22 proposed tuition rates. Mr. Jensen, I believe you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Dr. Bornstein, you have before you action item 6A, our proposed tuition rates for the next calendar year, 21-22 for the next academic year. Not notwithstanding all the conversation we've had about tuition today, I'll just get right down to the administrative recommendation, which is no tuition for fiscal year 21-22. So with that, I'll stand for any questions, but that's the administrative recommendation, is to hold our tuition at the same level that we've been at. Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you for that, Chuck. Appreciate the conversation in our work session as well. It was a lot of great information, and it certainly gives us a lot of information to work with. So, but relative to today's action item, this year is no tuition rate, so a raise. So I would first of all offer any opportunity for questions of you. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the action item A.
I would make a motion to approve action item A on our agenda.
I would like to second that motion.
Okay, thank you both. We have a motion and a second. And Carrie, I would ask you for a roll call vote. Thank you.
Certainly. Trustee Howe.
Aye.
Trustee O'Hara.
Aye.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee Wendell.
Aye.
Chair Oxiger.
Aye. Okay, then motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Moving on to action item B, location of public board meeting notices. And Carrie, I'll have the meeting turned over to you.
Thank you, Chair Oxiger. Trustees, you have before you action item 6B, which is the location of board meeting public notices. Per Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-402, the Board of Trustees will give full and timely notice, no less than 24 hours, to the public of any meeting at which the adoption of any proposed policy or formal action will occur, or at which a quorum of the board is expected to attend. As of July 1st, 2019, the location may be a public website. The recommended site is www.ames.edu/about-board. The recommended physical location in situations such as power outages is Ames Community College, President's Office, Ed Beatty Hall, Room 103, 5401 West 20th Street, Greeley, Colorado. May I answer any questions?
Any questions of Carrie?
Mr. Chairman, I would just move that we approve item B, is it?
Item B, that's correct. Thank you for that, Dr. Peterson. Do I have a second?
Second.
And we have a second by Trustee Howe. Carrie, I would ask you to take a roll call vote.
Trustee Howe.
Aye.
Trustee O'Hara. Trustee O'Hara.
Aye.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee Wendell.
Aye.
Chair Oxiger.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much, Carrie, and that motion passes. Okay, next on the agenda is the information items. First, item A, progress on board priorities. Excuse me. I certainly think we've made some progress. We stayed on our board priorities. It's been a little bit tough with the pandemic, actually assessing some of those and communicating, et cetera, et cetera. I think we've done a yeoman's job of doing the best we can. Our priorities include continuing the growth and improvement of the Trust of Ames College, which means participating in local and national conferences, collaborating with other institutions, and continue board assessments. As you can see, a couple of those are a little bit tough to do with the pandemic, but we've certainly done the board assessments, and we've participated in local and national conferences to the extent possible through remote and virtual conferences. And we continue to advocate for Ames Community College. We all do that in all we do locally, statewide and nationally has been a little tough with the pandemic, as we know. but we're always looking for opportunities to connect. Item C, supporting the colleges and accomplishing the strategic plan. We do that every meeting, and all we do, and the college's staff and Dr. B and her crew have been really good about presenting, making presentations rather on the strategic plan and the progress that's being made. And they're doing a yeoman's job on that. And support the CEO president in addressing all the challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic. I certainly hope we provided the amount of support necessary. There have certainly been a lot of challenges presented, and I think everyone, the president especially, has done a super job in addressing those challenges and meeting all of those things that have challenged us all, and her especially, in the COVID-19 pandemic. And continuing and looking for opportunities to impress upon our CEO, president, faculty, and staff the appreciation of the board and the communities it represents for the incredible job they perform. We all do that. We all do that on every opportunity we get. We all have the opportunity at the end of each meeting to tell everyone how much we appreciate the job they're doing and to recognize individual efforts. So those are our board priorities. Does any of the other board members have any comments on those? Moving on then, information items. The next is the Distinguished Fellow nominations deadline of February 28th, 21, and the selection of a board trustee representative to the Distinguished Fellow Committee. Carrie, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you, Chair Oxiger. Trustees, per Policy 63 and Procedure 6301, you as a board may recognize an individual for their extraordinary contributions to Ames Community College by naming them a Distinguished Fellow. Nominations for the award are submitted by the public at large. A committee comprised of representatives from the college meets in March to review nominations and selects a nominee to be conferred by the board as a whole at the April meeting. This committee is chaired by a trustee. And I would like to ask for a volunteer to serve as a chair for the Distinguished Fellow Committee at this time.
Carrie, and just one thing we want to mention is if you, as a board member, intend to nominate someone as a Distinguished Fellow, it would probably be a good idea if you did not volunteer to serve on the committee.
I'll just comment that I did serve as the board representative last year, I believe. And I don't think I'll be able to this year because I will be leaving February 26th to go down to Arizona for about 5 weeks. So if we intend to use the same process as last year where we brought a group of us together and so forth, it may be hard to get that all done before I have to leave.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Gene. Yeah, that might be a little bit difficult for you. Hopefully they can get together in person. I'm not sure how they will do that, but that's certainly an option. So, is there anybody else that would like to volunteer for that?
Mr. Chairman, if no one else wants to, I'll sure do it.
All right, Dr. Peterson, that would be great.
Actually, and whether it be via Zoom or whatever, well, that doesn't seem to work too well for me, but we can make it work. And,
okay.
Or in purpose, in purpose.
Make use of all that retired time you have
right.
now.
That's right. See, I can stay inside that way. So.
Okay. Well, if no one has any objection, then I guess we will accept your volunteering to serve on the committee. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Next, on information items, the ACCT Legislative Summit update. Trustee Wendell.
Hello.
Hi there.
Well, first off, it was a really awesome conference, and I'm one of those people that I would prefer to be in the classroom than I would be on Zoom. So I would have loved to have been there in the flesh. It was really informative. Quickly, the first day, the keynote speaker was Amy Walters. She's a journalist, is on the PBS NewsHour. Primarily, she talked just a little bit about the political climate. It's a little polarized. She suggested there was some decline in public trust for institutions of all kinds, but she really kindly urged all community college leaders to be part of the solution, which I think Ames has done and still is doing a great job at that. Second day, the keynote speaker was Dr. Jill Biden. And primarily, Dr. Biden stated that under the Obama administration, the word got out that the community colleges were America's best kept secret, which I agree. And she said she'd like to pick up where they left off. And she would like, while we're rebuilding the economy, the community colleges will be an extremely important and will be at the forefront of our rebuilding. So that was kind of like the whole entire phrase of the entire legislative summit. They talked a little bit about the coronavirus packages that were passed in 2020, the CARES Act, which was in March, and the CARISA, I believe that's how it's pronounced, in December. That included about $10.2 billion to support community colleges and our students. It sounds like they're hopeful that the next coronavirus package relief program would fund approximately $40 billion. There was emphasis throughout the entire summit. The importance of the community college will play now and in our future of our economics and our country's success. Pathway programs were talked about quite a bit and were a key item, and it played a large role to students' successes. And I believe Ames does a very good job at that as well. A few other people talked about that our nation needs to be collaborating between community college leaders, between the K-12, four-year colleges, businesses, and communities, emphasizing, that we need to promote the education, the training, certification, and then the concentration of equity and access and affordability was one of the three items that were top for our next generation. Let's see. They had some discussion on the American Rescue Plan. Will include support for the child care sector and also parents needing child care support. And so I thought of Ames right away. I believe it was a year ago in March that we passed the certification for the child care certification. So we are right on task. House of Representatives presented indicate that they all saw movement and a bipartisanship commitment for supporting community colleges nationwide. So that was really great to hear. President Biden had appointed a woman, I think February 2nd or 3rd, Dr. Michelle Asha Cooper at the United States, Department of Education. And her focus was really looking at the Pell Grant and increasing the value of the Pell Grant. It has not been increasing according to the cost of living. So I thought that was good news for students. House Majority Whip James Clyburn came on, and he had discussions about the availability to access and access for nationwide broadband. And he really thinks that's going to play it'll be a big key factor in improving nationwide education. And sorry to say, Ray, also with telehealth. And then at the end, they talked a little bit about the SNAP and ET program, which is a supplemental nutrition assistant program, employment and training will be awarded to the ACCT to help build programs and community colleges and their communities. So there's a lot of support for community colleges nationwide. Everyone was in agreement that it's a well-kept secret, and I think the cat's out of the bag. I think they know it. So, but it was great. Thank you very much for paying for me to go virtual.
Well, thank you for attending, and thanks for bringing the information back. It's always good to hear the reports on these. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. So hopefully you'll be able to make the next conference as well, because they are good. Okay, thank you all. Next on the agenda is the President's Report. Dr. Bornstein.
Thank you. And we actually have an answer to Ray, your question about Rebecca Saylor's sabbatical. So Rebecca did receive her doctoral degree in December, but her sabbatical was a separate request. Her sabbatical is for spring of 22, so a little bit further out.
Okay.
And her focus is going to be within the humanities and multicultural pedagogy in order to develop more relevant courses in early civilization and world mythology for Ames students. So it's course development and research for classes, not in conjunction necessarily with her doctoral studies, but that she has completed. So
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yep, you're welcome. So we would like to start out with Dr. Rothamer, who would like to give a little bit of highlights on the EVP and Chief Academic Officer position at the college. And there he is, and he's unmuted. So there's Dr. Rothamer.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bornstein, Chair Oxiger, members of the board. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I have two quick updates for you that are in addition to the information that you already have in your board packet as updates. The first one is just kind of going back to your work session a couple of hours ago. Wanted to just bring us back a few months for when we did a overview at the Windsor campus at the board meeting where we talked about the academic master plan and highlighted for you some of the initiatives that we were currently in the midst of. One of them being Virtual Connect, and really trying to get an understanding of how to best meet the students in this new paradigm that we're facing, as well as moving forward. So we are in the middle of the prototype of that now. We had a meeting earlier this week because the first set of 8-week classes are actually in their midterms right now. So at the end of the semester, we're actually looking forward to bringing you some data and results from that prototype and how we continually to work with SACE as well as students to identify really what their preferred learning styles are. And I can assure you that the staff and faculty, which are already working on different and more effective and innovative ways to meet the students, we will be ready for those students with quality different modalities. So wanted to share that with you and just kind of pique your interest in what we're doing for the future and reporting out on that. Secondly, I wanted to share with you on Saturday, I had an opportunity to come to campus and go to Cornerstone and see the work that was done for the different way that Ames Community College, in particular, one of our accounting faculty members, Gina Jones, is working with Tax Prep Colorado and all of her volunteers. And while we'll certainly have updates for you as tax season moves along, what I was thoroughly impressed by is not only how Gina and her team were organized and those volunteers doing an amazing job. And I know Mike referenced it earlier in terms of how facilities has kind of jumped in and helped during the pandemic. But it was truly something to see about how effective that was working in the lobby of Cornerstone, how we were serving the public through a different modality, if you will. And it seemed to be working really, really well. But what I really wanted to highlight, besides the two pieces that we've already mentioned, and that's one of the things we oftentimes don't talk about, is the extra work that our safety and security team does to make sure that we're following the safety protocols. They're on site, and we're doing everything that we possibly can to keep not only our volunteers and staff safe, but certainly the public as they visit us. here on Ames Community College. So wanted to share that with you. The next item, as you have in your board packet, is an annual update for our Center of Workforce Development and Innovation. So at this time, I'd like to reintroduce you to Dean Robert Abernathy, who oversees our public safety, transportation, and workforce development area.
Hi, Carrie. Hey. I want to make sure I'm.
Lyle,
muted here.
you're unmuted, Lyle.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Dean Abernathy, are you with us?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Bornstein, Dr. Rothmer, Chair Oxiger, and may it please the board, I trust all can hear me well.
Good.
A quick administrative comment for Trustee Wendell. Thank you so much for remembering and recognizing the Early Childhood Education Department. And Chair Christine Wiedemann for the work she and her team have done with regard to putting together that certificate that keeps Ames ahead of the bow curve with regard to taking care of our youth. So anyway, just want to affirm that certificate with you and thank you for that. Well, to begin, I'll just say good afternoon and thank you once again for having me here to address this august group on the state of affairs for Ames Center for Workforce Development and Innovation. I'm joined today by Shana Howell, the center's director, so that she might assist me with the more challenging questions you might ask. Okay, really any question you might ask other than how's your day, Rob? So by way of reminder, the center empowers students to succeed and enriches Northern Colorado economic development by fostering workforce partnerships and tailored corporate training opportunities for the diverse communities we serve. We accomplish this primarily by focusing on tactics which represent nearly 10% of Ames' strategic plan. You'll see those tactics spelled out in the report from your packet on or about page 60, I believe. As we know, no one is immune from the terribly disruptive nature of the coronavirus. And this is not only true for the center, but also true for the businesses and industries with which we partner. However, due to a number of activities and initiatives, and thanks to some patience and perseverance, I'm happy to report that the state of the center is strong. If I'm to be honest, 2019 and 2020, early 2020 anyway, was a lackluster period for us in the Center for Workforce Development and Innovation as it relates to expanding our reach in the corporate training arena. And that was before the devastating effects of COVID-19 took hold in mid-2020. But as the college discussed yesterday during our conversation day, the center is navigating its way through the storm with an eye on a very productive future. For example, barely halfway through this current fiscal year, corporate training has secured a half-dozen+ contracts with more on the way. You'll see in your packet 5 of those contract training industry partners when this report went to print, and we're still counting. If we're to look at just those 5 though, you'll see that those training contracts represent 50% increase, 50% increase in incumbent workers trained over the previous year, or at nearly 300, quite an accomplishment. And $250,000 increase in income over that same year, or at nearly $300,000. A footnote essential to highlight here is that Ames is not only the grant administrator on these corporate training contracts, we also provide the quality instruction. Demonstrates Ames' capability or capacity for serving relevance in the community and connectivity to our business partners' needs. Just a few of the myriad workforce skills that Ames facilitated training for include electric motors, hydraulics, PLC or programmable logic controllers, as well as areas like leadership excellence in Microsoft Excel, to name a few. A couple of our major partners include Owens Brockway Glass and Vestas Blades. Both, you know, are Ames neighbors, but both also represent international business ventures. Not a bad feather for Ames workforce cap, is it? Our CDL, or Commercial Driver's License Training Program, is also back on track, pun intended, albeit at a slower pace. We're still feeling the effects of COVID quarantine or COVID restrictions, as we have in other areas of the college. And though not quite at full strength yet, the pieces are in place to accelerate this activity. Some of those pieces include the following. We're already operating new tractors. We're already operating new trailers. Thank you, board. And last year, we completed the relocation of our CDL program to the Fort Lupton campus, where it is more centrally located to serve the overland transportation industry. This new location and dedicated, purpose-driven training lot have already served Ames and our community well. Next, we look forward to the installation of an acceleration-deceleration shifting track, whereby we'll be able to more efficiently and more safely deliver training in this #2 in-demand industry in the state. Down the road, if you will, we look forward to the possibility of infusing simulation into the program, which would allow us to expand our training envelope in a wide range of environmental conditions and driving experiences to increase our program's capacity and quality. For the Center of Workforce Development and Innovation, this last year really has been one of refocus, relocation, and realignment. We already discussed how we've redoubled our effort and laser focused our attention in the corporate training arena, and we've relocated the CDL program where we get more bang for the buck. So the last piece of this puzzle was our strategic realignment effort. After evaluating how we best serve our students, our constituents, our community, we restructured the center by realigning the College for Kids program under the Executive Director of Admissions, Counseling, and Recruiting in SACE. Additionally, in support of Strategic Plan Tactic 56, whereby we continually reassess the nature and role of the satellite campuses, we transferred Ames Continuing Education under the leadership of Loveland Campus Executive Director Heather Lelchuk. These steps more appropriately align the important Ames functions in areas where they will better serve our students and flourish in the future. Looking to the future, the center will continue to leverage the long-established strategic workforce partnerships where we have in areas such as Bright Futures of Weld County, Employment Services of Weld County, Larimer and Weld County Workforce Boards, and WeldWorks Labor Team, to name a few. These entities serve as the foundation or backbone of what we are collectively doing to train and educate an existing and future workforce. We are in the midst of expanding our ties in the corporate and business community as we bring on board new partners in entities such as Peak Form Clinic, Workwell, Ehrlich Toyota, and Ball Aerospace. Finally, right here at Ames, we're taking the one team, one fight or interdivisional approach to serving our constituents by working side by side with SACE in the newly formed Ames Employee Relations Committee. There's a lot of exciting stuff going on under Shana's leadership, with a great deal more to come. Bottom line here is that when it comes to offering alternative course delivery options or increasing our non-credit programs, to expanding our partnerships or strengthening our relationships with business and industry, the Center for Workforce and Development and Innovation continues to strive toward making Ames the first phone call, the first choice to address our neighbors' tailored corporate training needs. So pending your questions, this concludes my update. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Well, Rob, real quick back.
Trustee Howe.
I was able to attend the Colorado Higher Education Symposium for Trustees this past January at the end. And it was enlightening because all of the topics you kind of addressed were one of the critical paths and conversations two individuals talked about. Ryan Craig, I don't know if you've heard of him. He's kind of talked about a different format that you actually have an upside down degree program that possibly puts people in their field of work trained with initial process and then a continuing education format to to follow up behind that. And another lady was Michelle Weiss, and she wrote a book called Long Life Learning. And it was a very interesting concept because higher ed is in a paradigm. They have to become more affordable. And what can they provide the community immediately? And what you just discussed and shared with us is right up what they were discussing, and maybe enlightening those trustees about opportunities that maybe go beyond the normal reach of a college or a university that way. I know we're a community college and we have a different focus to some extent, but we're also ready to support the community that we serve too immediately. And I appreciate what you just talked about. It's right up our alleys, as you know.
Thank you, Trustee Howard. I can address some of that now if you like.
Go ahead.
You talk about being a higher education institution, a community college. Well, part of employment services and workforce development, that still puts the community in community college, doesn't it? That doesn't necessarily have to mean that we're taking 4-credit courses. That said, I think we all pride ourselves at Ames in our accessibility and affordability, as we discussed earlier with the tuition costs. So getting our customers, our students in the front door is the first step, whether those students be 4-credit, traditional students, or incumbent workers that are local businesses and industry. One of the things that I know that we have at our disposal is the opportunity to afford some of these incumbent workers or new personnel to the workforce these certificates that you mentioned, entry-level certificates that allow them the minimum qualifications to work in business and industry. Those certifications can come through corporate training, or they can come through continuing education, or they can be a 4-credit certification. Once they get their foot in the door at the business, then they, in conjunction with their employer, do kind of a work-student timeshare so that they continue their education while earning hopefully a living wage. So great opportunities, and I appreciate you bringing that to the fore, Trustee Howard.
Yeah, thank you. It was a very worthwhile symposium that we shared, and I know Trustee Heidi was participant there as well, and I think it was time well spent, that 4 to 5 hours that we listened to some objectives, and there were some good statements about SACE, and I'll comment when Sarah's up in front of us, and that was interesting too as well. But I appreciate what you're focusing on, and there's a lot to focus on, and you can't do it all, but I think you're hitting the high points, which is good.
Thank you very much, Trustee Howard. There is a lot, but it's exciting work. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, anything else from EVP, Chief Academic Officer?
That would conclude our report.
Okay. Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Rob. We are going to see Mr. Jensen again for our monthly budget update and any highlights from administrative services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Bornstein. You have before you the budget presentation as of December 31st. As we go through looking at where we're at in mid-year, I still feel very confident that our projected revenue is on track in total. The amounts from the property taxes and stuff, of course, that starts coming later in the spring here. So it looks like a really small number of actual revenue right now, but that's just the timing for both that and the state appropriations. But at this point, feel very comfortable that we will meet or maybe even slightly exceed our revenue projections that we had for the fiscal year. On the expenditure side of the house, things continue to track well. I have no concerns to bring to the board of areas of concern. Our big projects are continuing on, the workday projects, things like that are continuing to make great progress. And so I don't have any concerns there with the expenditures and expect them to continue to be on track. I do want to respond to one question that I was stumped on at the last board meeting from Trustee Wendell, talking about public service, that category down at the bottom of the budget and what that is. And what that budget of $20,500 for is for our two sponsorships, both to the East Colorado Small Business Development Center and to the Upstate Colorado Economic Development. And these are simple sponsorships that the college has maintained for a number of years in support of economic development in Weld County and in northeastern Colorado. So that's what that $20,000 budget is for. Looking at the rest of the information there, I don't have any other information for the board, unless there are questions. I'll stand for questions.
Hey, hearing none. Thank you, Chuck. We'll move on to Dr. Sarah Weisgeber, who would like to give us an update on the college climate survey progress and process, as well as any highlights she'd like to give from the SACE division. And it looks like she is on screen and unmuted.
Fantastic. Well, good afternoon, Chair Oxiger, Board of Trustees, Dr. Bornstein. I was excited to spend some time with you all today because we're close to Valentine's Day, and I think about our time yesterday as a whole college community and just how much compassion and love that was shared with each other. And so that was really exciting. A lot of the dialogue that we talked about yesterday was around our college campus climate survey and understanding how we can share love with everyone and make everyone feel included. As you will recall, the Campus Climate Survey is part of the strategic plan and is designed, it's under our diverse populations tactics, and is really designed to better understand how folks at the college in every different role, so staff, administrators, faculty, and students, feel a sense of belonging, a sense of connectedness, and a sense of responsiveness at the college. So I'm super excited because we've done a lot of work over the fall, and our survey is getting ready to launch February 26th. So the survey will be open for almost a month. It'll be open until March 23rd. Every week we'll be drawing 10 names, employees, and 10 students, and they're going to get some good swag. So we're excited about the opportunity to have folks participate. Really, I think what we'll be able to do as a result of this survey, so we'll be able to make more informed decisions about how we as a community choose to engage in this work. The state of Colorado has been highly engaged in diversity and equity and inclusion work. They're actually holding a day of dialogue in March that Ames will be participating in. And so this survey goes right along with that and is right in line with the recommendations being put out by the state, encouraging all institutions of higher ed across the state of Colorado to start to analyze and better understand their campus climate. So kudos for us. We're ahead of the game. I like Dr. Bornstein, like it when we are a little bit on the front end of what's coming down the pike. So we're really excited about that. We'll be analyzing the data through the spring, pulling together some reports over the summer, and then in the fall be sharing those reports with the campus community. So really looking forward to what we have to provide there. In terms of what students are doing right now, it may be hard to believe for you. It was hard to believe for me. Students are taking their first exams this week in many of our classes across the board. Doesn't it just feel like the semester just started and they're already preparing for their first exams? So I know our faculty must be feeling like, holy crap. Oh, sorry. Holy cow. That went fast. I think our students are feeling the same way. Our enrollment services are starting to slow down just a little bit. We're still seeing quite a bit of action in financial aid. as students are getting ready for the next year of turning in their FAFSA. But what we're seeing uptick right now are really our progression services. And those include things like transfer services, career services, the Center for Diversity and Inclusion. Those are the things, as you'll see in the score calendar, that we're really seeing students engage in. Other operational highlights I would share. We did something amazing. We did something completely amazing over the month of December. And in a 2-week time period, we did the biggest move Ames has ever done over the Christmas break. And when I say we, very little me, it was mostly Mike Millsaps and his incredible team who got stuff moved, packed, put in weird places, and then put back in the right places. It was our IT team who hooked up every single computer that was moved. But it was especially the staff who were trying to get through the holidays, get ready to come back, and get moved into a new place and be ready to rock and roll by January 4th to serve our students. So huge kudos to all those folks. It was really incredible. Earlier in our discussion today, we talked a little bit about enrollment and what we might see there. I will share with you that the sponsorship team, which is comprised of myself, Dr. Rothmer, Chuck Jensen, and Zach McFarland, who I affectionately refer to as my cabinet dudes. We comprise the sponsorship team, and what we've been working on right now is developing a framework so that we can pull together a working group and develop a strategic enrollment plan that should take us out about 3 years. We're still planning and anticipating on implementing that plan this fall, so working really hard on that. We also had great success with degrees awarded in the fall. We had 629 degrees and certificates awarded in the fall. Total headcount that's unduplicated was 403 students. So 403 students completed this fall. Exciting. I have more excitement for you. I'm sorry if this has taken a long time, but I am pumped. So this last one is we've actually won a couple grants in the SACE division over the last couple months, which we're really excited about, right? Especially in this current climate and thinking about creative ways to help support our employees and our students financially. So first one I'd like to tell you about was written by Dr. Audra Turnovic. She's our director for our pathway advising area, and we won a $10,000 grant from CDHE that is designed specifically to support the success of students with developmental needs. So there's going to be Trustee Wendell, you talked about pathways a little bit. That need for students with developmental needs is right in line with that pathways work. And it's going to provide a lot of training and support mechanisms for us to better serve those students. We'll be working closely with our cousins over in academic affairs on those projects. Also, Artie's Pantry received not one, but 2 grants this spring. Artie's Pantry received $6,000 from United Way, and then also $7,500 from the State of Colorado Food Pantry Assistance Fund. And so a lot of that work goes direct shout out to Patty Schultz, who holds the heart of the pantry in her tiny little body. What we're hearing is pantry students are really utilizing the pantry a lot this spring, perhaps more so than they were in the past. And I shared with you during our last board meeting how we've changed some things around to help facilitate that a little bit better. So what these grants for the pantry mean is we're no longer relying entirely on donations, though please don't get me wrong, still donate. We're no longer relying entirely on donations for the pantry, but we do want to note that those dollars do need to be spent by July 31st. So we're really excited about what this allows us to provide our students, and of course couldn't do it without the amazing help from administrative services in the grants office of two people. One is our grants person, whose name is Malone Miller, and is a complete rock star and is responsive every time we say, hey, let's find some money for this cool thing. Really excited to share those things with you, and happy to answer any questions about what I've shared or maybe what you've been hearing out in the community.
Hi, Sarah. I have a question or a comment. In the Summit Legislative meeting that was held Monday and Tuesday, the one thing they did mention was that nationwide, 1 out of 3 students are having food insecurity. And now they're saying it's up even more so. So I think we need to keep the Artie's pantry filled if we can.
Yeah. Thank you. So for all of you out there, and Kelly Jackson, let's keep it coming. I agree. In fact, I met with a group of incredibly high performing 4.0 students last week. There was 5 students in the group. 3 of the 5 students said they use the pantry on a regular basis. And so it just goes to show you how important this service is.
I guess, Dr. Weiskopf, the grants that you're talking about, they were pretty well highlighted in the Tribune.
Yeah.
When they happened. Yeah, it was really some good publicity again, which I just amazes me how often Ames is in there for doing good stuff. Right on. Yeah. But is there any parameters to those grants? I mean, I assume they're for supplies, but is that part of the grant? Or I mean, is it, that's one of the rules, I'll get it in a minute or something.
Yeah, you're familiar with grants, Trustee Peterson. I can see that because they always come along with a lot of
strings.
Yeah, a lot of strings. To my knowledge, the grants are they have to be used 100% toward the food pantry and based on what you are allowed as a food pantry to provide. So for instance, at this point in time, Ames is only allowed to provide dry goods or other personal care items. We're not, for example, allowed to sell frozen meat. You know what I mean?
Right, sure.
And so we have to stay within those guidelines. The other thing I would mention is those funds have to be spent by July 31st of this year, which at this point doesn't look to be a problem because we're seeing such an increase in pantry use.
Oh, that's great. That's good to know. Yep. Glad that service is available.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. I remember when you all voted to support that. So thank you.
Sarah, would we need to have special certification to have frozen or refrigerated foods provided? Is there a hoop that we'd have to jump through with
yes.
Health departments?
Right. And so actually, Mike earlier talked about the student commons and how it's going to be so great and provide us so many more opportunities. This is one of the opportunities we'd like to explore because we will have a little bit more space and access to some of the freezer and refrigeration area that exists there now. So we actually have folks who are working on digging into what it would take for Ames to be able to offer those goods as well. I don't, UNC does it down the road. So it's not, trying to think the right way to say this. It's not an act of the universe to make it happen. It's, I believe, a series of paperworks and conditions. However, right now we just haven't had the space or the resources to do it. But once we get moved into the student commons, I'm super excited because we will have the opportunity to do that. And we're thoughtful when we were laying out the student commons about being able to move that direction.
Okay. On another note, I just wanted to reaffirm your conclusion that you're a little ahead of the game on diversity, engagement, and inclusion.
Yeah.
We were talking about some ideas and subjects, and I go, well, we were there 2.5 years ago, so I think they're riding in your wake.
That's exciting. I love that.
Know that. So thank you to your staff and all the people that are reinforcing those parameters.
Yeah, and truly, I would say, Trustee Howe, it's a college-wide initiative. It is certainly not just work that's happening in the SACE division or the CDI. This is happening in all the classrooms. It's happening in all of our different spaces. And so, really trying to move forward because our goal is to create a stronger community, right?
Yeah.
And we can do that by creating a more accepting atmosphere.
Very good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you,
You
Sarah.
too. Thank you, Sarah.
Bye-bye.
So now it's comments from me. And, I was just thinking as I was listening and watching throughout this year, certainly you've heard our cabinet members present, which also include Dee Schultz from HR, Zach McFarland from Marcom, and Brad Yoder from IT. But, they're always giving kudos and comments and recognition to the folks, that they supervise and they oversee. And while they have time on your agenda to report out, I think it's opportune for me to say a moment or two about all the work that the cabinet members have done. And I know, you mentioned that at the end of meetings, you recognize me, but I'm also, when I hear that, really when you say Dr. B, it's really the college. However, I think what you all need to know too is those members that you hear from, Russ and Chuck and Sarah and Dee and Zach and Brad, are just fantastic professionals that are staying positive and moving forward. And, there are things that keep them up at night. There are things that keep all of us up at night. While they present to you in the screen and they're positive and forward looking and they're professional and they've got all their research done, you also need to know that they're supporting their teams, their families, their communities, and really putting so much effort and time into ensuring that Ames it's the wonderful success that it is. So it just struck me that I'm not sure that I've publicly acknowledged them enough and wanted to make sure that I did that, because that's truly also part of the employee base. That's the backbone of Ames. So just wanted to take a moment to say that. So having said that, in your packet, you have the President's Community Meetings of Note. These are just the community meetings, not all the other meetings that happen for my calendar. And because we haven't met since December, this is the December and January list. So if you have any questions about any of those meetings, I'd be happy to respond. There were a couple of interviews, radio morning show, and national higher ed e-news group on Inside Higher Education. We had our cabinet retreat, so there was some conversations with our facilitator. We had our Leadership Weld County Education panel, board meetings, et cetera. So I don't need to read through it, but if there's anything that you have a question about, I'd be happy to address it.
I did, Dr. B. I was interested in the JBC hearing.
Which is wonderful, because Chuck will have to answer that question. Because, really, right before we did that remotely, right before that, I had technical difficulties and I couldn't sign in. So Chuck had the notes, and he jumped in and reported out for us. So Chuck, I don't know if you're taking a break or, okay, he's unmuting himself. So Chuck, if you want to just say briefly a couple of sentences about that, that would be awesome.
I was just pleased that I actually had a coat and tie in my office here so I could present with a coat and tie on for the JVC. But no, we had very brief comments and highlighted a lot of the good points of the college, and it was short and sweet and to the point, and over and done with in probably about 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and that's fairly typical from my experience in Colorado at our January hearing. So this was, I would say, was going to be my 6th. Chuck jumped in there. But for the years before, really, because about only 9% of our revenues come from the state, and the JVC is really interested in hearing from the state system. So Chancellor Garcia, who oversees the 13 public community colleges, that's where the majority of the time goes. That's where all the questions really go. So we get 5 minutes. Colorado Mountain College gets about 5 minutes. The technical colleges get about 5 minutes. And it is, we also have a series of questions that the staff, the JVC staff provide us ahead of time that we respond to in writing and submit. So the real serious kind of questions or work happens at that point. And then we talk a little bit about really what we do is we pull some information from our annual report, the report out to the community, and present that information to them. So it's a little bit of time.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Dr. B. So I was just going to add that comment too, that yes, there is a lot of information that Ames does provide to the JVC behind, or JVC behind the scenes. And so it's not just 5 minutes of Ames, they do get a breadth of or depth of information from all the campuses in written format.
And I do have to make one comment. While you were all talking, you mentioned your information, Chuck. I had to Google JVC hearing. I had no idea what the acronym was.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm still learning. Learning.
No,
thank you.
No, that's good, because there's a lot, now that I look at the report, there's a lot of acronyms there. So I will remember in the future to spell all that out. So sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I'm finding everything at my fingertips. It's fine. Thank you.
Okay. It's good to have that little computer in
There are one committee that is continuing work while the legislature is in recess. And so because they have such an obligation to have a budget in place by June 1st, they have continued their committee work even while the legislature has been recessed.
Thank you, Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
Just 2 more comments as you're thinking about any questions on the meetings of note. So you heard lots of folks comment on Conversation Day, which was yesterday. We had 530 participants, employee participants for that day. And it just happened yesterday. So we don't have any of the survey results on how it went. But what I will say, in the afternoon, so when they broke for lunch and then came back, divisions and departments had a set of assignments. Everybody had the same, to basically talk a little bit and take some notes, or talk a lot. Reflect over the last year, during the pandemic, what has changed for Ames? What has changed in our job functions? What has changed for the better that we actually want to hang on to and continue? What has probably changed not for the better that either we want to augment or shift, or, once the pandemic's over, we don't want to do that again. But really looking forward to what do we need to enhance and think about as we recover. So that was, I'm looking forward to seeing the big long lists, I'm sure, that will be prepared for that. And the thought, my initial thought at this point, is that depending upon, what comes out of that list and comes out of the college climate survey and some of these data gatherings, we might actually start to see the development of our next strategic plan from some of these things. Obviously, some things will need to happen sooner than that. But, you know, some of these things may start formulating our next plan. So it's very exciting time. The other thing you heard a little bit about is that starting next week, we're going to be bringing some more class courses back to in-person. So I just wanted to let you know that last fall, in November, December-ish, we ended the fall at about a 25% course density rate. And we started this spring at a 25% course density rate. By bringing some courses back next week, we're moving to a 38% course density rate. So we're cautiously and mindfully moving back into, hopefully this is the recovery phase, and we don't have to go back, but we've been very mindful as we have this whole past years of being able to be agile and flexible and move forward and move back as we learn more information from the county, from the state, and certainly from CDC. So that's where we are with that at this point in time.
And Dr. B, what does course density rate mean?
So, you know, all the time that we're hearing about, you don't want to be meeting too many people in person. So what's the density of the college? What's the density of a building? Because you don't want too many folks at one place so that we're not passing the contagion. So that's what we refer to as density. And when I say course density, it's the percentage of courses, if you will, that are in person versus in a remote environment or hybrid. So when we ended with a 25% course density, out of 100% of our courses that were in person at one point in time, pre-pandemic, about 25% of them were in person the end of fall, beginning of spring, and now we're going to move to 38%.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
You know, Dr. B, we were invited to join into the convocation yesterday, I guess it was, and I couldn't be there, but I just wondered, is there any chance that like the keynote speaker would have been recorded? It just seemed to me like that would be something that I'd sure like to, you know, listen in on or be a part of if I could get a chance.
Okay, you know, I don't know if it was recorded. Let me find out and I'll get back to you. And if it was recorded, then either Carrie or myself will just go ahead and send you a link.
Okay,
Yeah.
super.
That'd be great. Yeah, I made the same request. So.
Yeah. Okay, super. Any other comments or questions from the president's report listed? I'm just looking at the next page. The next page, you have the employee report, new positions and leaving employee of the college. I do want to make a comment about the lists that you see of leaving employee of the college. We usually don't list why folks are leaving because that's personal information, really. However, I do want to just again give you a heads up because we're going to be talking about this certainly internally at the college. Is, you know, as we're seeing recovery and through the pandemic, of course, and as we're seeing recovery. Again, human behavior. This is such a study on human behavior. And I'm sure all of us have done this to a certain degree, is, you know, this was a pretty significant global crisis and we all experienced it different ways. However, it also, I would venture to guess, the majority of us at different levels and different ways have evaluated our lives in this kind of situation is, do we still want to live in the same place? Do we want to work at the same place? Do we want to be involved in the same activities? Do we want to be partnered with the same people? Do we want to, you know, all those kinds of sort of self-reflection, existential kinds of thoughts, if you will. And I think that's going to be interesting again going forward because our learners, our community members, our employees are doing the same thing. So we have seen a few employees make some different decisions. Well, I shouldn't say different decisions, make some decisions for themselves to move closer to family, to take a job somewhere else in the country, et cetera. And we may see that continue. The same with our students. We will also be the recipients of that, right? Folks will choose to come here, both as learners and as employees. But just as a heads up, again, this is a real unique time in history, and we need to wake up and take notice of that. And so we may see long lists. I hope not, but we may see lists of folks choosing to go elsewhere. We may see short lists, but again, just want you to know that folks are making decisions for their best interest and the best interest of their families and so forth. And we may see more of that. So just that you know. Any questions that you didn't ask?
No, comment on the number of employees, though. We did have one more employee come than the number that left.
Yeah. Right. And some of this is timing as far as when things happen, and also keep in mind, this was for 2 months, right? December and January. Sure. So, but it is this is a total interesting time on human behavior and what people will choose to do with their lives. So
I looked at that, list and thought, well, that's no big deal. That's not a lot of change from what we've seen in the past. And like you say, it's 2 months, but are you suggesting that there is some evidence of relocation in the Ames people?
Yeah. There are some folks on that list that actually made choices to either move closer to family members in other parts of the country, or partner spouse chose a different career path and they're moving to that. So yeah, it was more just a heads up. This is kind of going to be interesting to watch. But yeah, there are folks that are doing that. Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think that would be surprising, considering across the country, there's some resurgence on employment and things like that after a year of job opportunities being very tight. So I see it as just a normal evolution of our economy and our society.
Sure. I'm not worried about it. It's just, again, I guess I'm a student of human behavior. My discipline is psychology. And so, how people are making choices, why they're making choices. This, again, as we've said many times, is a pretty significant point in history. What are people going to do? How are they going to behave? Why are they making the choices they're making?
Well, there is evidence. I know even in the city of Fort Lupton, in the high school, or even in that district, they've lost so many students. They don't know where they went. They just left, and there's no forwarding address or anything. So I think a lot of the population has done that. They have just uprooted, some of them. And I think some have lost jobs and they're going elsewhere, or lost family members and they're going elsewhere. So I think there will be a transition, and then I think eventually it will calm down, but there's definitely going to be a little bit of chaos, if you want to call it, at the beginning, until we all calm down.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see the numbers and see what they say.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And as you said, Heidi, and many of us have said before, it's not going to just happen, in a few months. I expect we're going to, however long it takes for us to quote unquote calm down, but probably a couple of years for this wave to kind of go through. So again, it will be interesting, and just sort of an opportunity to have a conversation about some hunches that we're thinking about and trying to make sure we're prepared for. So. And that concludes President's report.
Great report. Covered a lot of stuff, so a lot of good information. Thank you for that. Okay, well, next is comments from board members. Anybody like to lead it off? Jean?
Well, I thought it was a very well-prepared agenda and good information, positive information, and a few alerts to things that aren't always positive. So good meeting. I thought it was time well spent.
Thank you, Jean.
And
Dr.
I would,
Peterson, go ahead. Heidi, go ahead then.
I'm just going to get it out. Yeah, I thought it was a great meeting. It's always nice to see everyone. I miss seeing everyone. The positive feedback and the positive information everyone gave us from in the work session even and in the board meeting was amazing. I think it just makes us all become a better team, and we're more in the know, and we can keep our ears and eyes open to see if we can help any more than what we're doing already. So I appreciate all the effort everyone has done. So thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
I
Dr.
guess
Peterson.
I would comment that, you know, as usual, it was a very good board meeting. Everybody was so well prepared and gave us so much information and really keeping us up to date on what's going on and why, and as much as can be what the results are or what progress is being made. But the one comment that I guess I would really like to make is I wish to hell we wouldn't have to do this on Zoom. I would sure like to. I'd sure like to be able to see everybody, Heidi, in person rather than you know, via the internet or whatever we're doing. But I know that that's at least at the moment probably is not in the immediate future, but I sure will be glad when we get there.
So can we consider that an official request?
That's official. In fact, I would move that.
I would second that.
Oh, you missed your chance to get that on the agenda, buddy. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Peterson.
I guess I can be next. It just, you know, it was a great meeting, good information. You know, I feel we're blessed with information from time to time, and that, you know, we never get to ask, or either an acronym, we need an explanation, what's that mean? And that's always a good thing. You know, I miss, like Ray, the contact. I think we all do miss the contacts, the hugs, and we're ready for a long ending to that. But I do think I'm very proud of what you guys do. Dr. B, you're doing a terrific job. Thank you for your leadership. You look great, by the way. I'm glad to see your program's working. I need to work on mine. So, and wonderful, wonderful. But long and short, we have a lot of information that we have to make some decisions on coming up next month. And Chuck, thank you again for your presentation. Rob and Russ and Sarah, again, you guys do a great job, and I'm glad your leadership is there. So have a good week coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Always. I would echo everyone's comments. It was a great meeting. Got a lot of information. It's good to have everybody back. It's been quite a while since we've met and talked with one another. So it always is good to be back after this long break. Appreciate all that everybody's gone through. I know we've all had challenges over the pandemic and everything, and I just hope that everybody is doing all right. It sounds like everybody is working through this and meeting all the challenges, and we appreciate what everybody has we appreciate how everybody has met the many challenges that they're all faced with. And remember, we're all faced with them, and we're all, I think, doing very, very well. This is definitely something that we would not have wished for, but kudos to everyone for the great job they've done. I just can't say it enough. So, okay. Assessment of the board meeting. What did we learn? What worked? What didn't work? We focus on oversight strategy challenges. We certainly know we got the information, and I think everybody got an opportunity to speak. Any other comments? Any comments on the board meeting itself, on what we learned and et cetera? Any comments at all? Okay. Well, the next item on the agenda then would be to adjourn into executive session. So let me just read per Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-402, parent 4, parent F. The board may adjourn into executive session for the purpose of personnel matters. We will need a motion, and upon approval of that motion, I just want to make a note that the executive session will be done in a separate session for confidentiality. We will adjourn the board meeting in that session, and just for the record, there will be no decisions made. So with that having been said, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Chairman, I would like to move that we move into the executive session.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move into executive session. Carrie, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Trustee Hout.
Aye.
Trustee O'Hara.
Aye.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee Wendell.
Aye.
And Chair Oxiger.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. We will adjourn into executive session. Thank you all for being here for the regular meeting, and certainly for the work session earlier in the day. And so with that, we will see you in executive session on the link that Carrie has sent the board. Thank you.